What's up, everybody? I'm Dave Miranda, and this is episode 115 of Just Give Me 5. I hope you guys are doing great, continue to be amazing. We got an awesome show lined up for you today. But first things first, I need you to hit that like button, I need you to hit that subscribe, and I need you to spread the word about Just Give Me 5. All right. If you guys caught episode 114, you saw we had none other than my man RTC Shogun on. And let me tell you, Shogun just has such a beautiful spirit, man. Just a really good dude. And I was so happy we were able to have him on this platform because, he was able to talk about the radio station days. He was also able to talk about Mindspirit Records. Mindspirit is legendary out here in Arizona. Shout out to my brother Fact, Knock and Mike Devious, of course. So it was really great for him to tell that story because it's something that, absolutely needs to be documented out here because it is a part of Arizona history. And everything he's got going on with the Beat Cast as well. Just all dope stuff, man. So shout out to you, my brother. And, like I said, man, I wish you the best and nothing less. Make sure you guys watch episode 114. All right. But today's guest is an absolute legend in the Arizona music scene and totally deserves his flowers. We're going to talk about where his passion for music came from, as well as the creation of Saltmine Studios. We're going to talk about some legendary studio sessions and so much more. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I present to you Don Salter.
Hi, I'm Don Salter, and all I'm saying is, just give me 5. I was a kid and I was listening to the Beatles and I was hearing this song Ticket to Ride, and a friend of mine who was a drummer and I was trying to play guitar, and we just could not figure out what was that music that was coming through the radio. It didn't make any sense to us that we could create that with his drums and my fledgling ability to play guitar. Right. We just couldn't wrap our heads around what made the music. And I, of course, determined later it was the fact that you have the players who can actually play, and you have a bunch of voices and bass and keyboards and guitars, and there's just a lot that goes into creating the big sound of, right, of a song. But at that time, it was a passionate realization that music was everything. My dad was a classically trained pianist. Okay. And he instilled in me a great love for music at an early age, and I've learned later that the Salter legacy is musicians back even down to the court of King David, where they would play on the psaltery, hence the name Salter. Right. It's spelled with P, S-A-L-T-E-R, and then there's a Y. And basically what the psaltery is a stringed instrument. It's a harp. And so, there's two origins for the name Salter, in that the stringed instrument player surely plays a role in my perception of things, because I play guitar and play a little mandolin, and, we can smash around a little bit on a sitar and so forth. But I had a deep appreciation for the stringed instrument, and then also apparently Salters were the purveyors of salted meats back in the days of our English ancestors. Okay. They would salt meats, which was a way of preserving meats for the non-refrigerated world that we were in at that time.
Right. Wow, man. And so now your father being, a pianist, did you ever get a chance to learn the piano or play keys at all?
My dad gave me the piano lessons that I had hoped that I would, instantly jump onto, and then gave me the first, bad thing that ever happened, which was the choice, the free agency to exercise my deciding to quit, because I wanted to be a Beatle. I had seen the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and the British invasion was taking on LA by storm where I was growing up. Okay. And for me, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all the cool bands, early Fleetwood Mac, before they became Americanized. They were an English blues band and had some amazingly cool songs with Danny Kirwan and some of the pre-Buckingham Nicks influence. But I was a big fan of Jethro Tull, learned to play the flute as a result of learning to appreciate Jethro Tull music.
Okay.
And so basically I just got a choice to drop the piano lessons, which Dad did not mind because, you know, he basically figured to save some money. But at the end of the day, had he just given me a little bit more determination through a more of a parental directive, I might have resented him, but I might be a better piano player today.
Right, right. True, true. Now, growing up in LA, who were some of the like artists and musicians or bands locally, you know, that you can recall at the time that you were like, oh wow, these guys are really good?
Well, I was a real big fan of the Doors.
Okay.
You know, I had my first slow dance you know, light my fire and felt the teenage experience of beginning to feel attraction to the opposite sex.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, they were an LA band, and so of course I had deep appreciation for them, and they were our best you know, version of Americanized music until the Eagles and Crosby, Stills, Nash, and you know, Young and Buffalo Springfield basically became our American Beatles. You know, that's the era of, for me, was the mid '60s, and I had an older brother, still do, who lived in England for a few years and sent me records as a kid, and so being that I was like 8 years old, I quickly became a expert almost in great rock and roll, you know, from the English days to the early '60s bands and the, you know, the Flower Power pre-Woodstock era and all that. My brother kind of led me along. He still has, you know, influenced me with musical taste that has helped guide me today to be the kind of person I am almost. So I'm grateful for him. Well, the name Saltmine came from the idea that I was married. I had a home studio above my garage. I would come home after a day's work and end up, you know, tooling around with the kids and giving them some baths and helping them get ready for bed. And then, of course, I was run upstairs above my garage and happily dig myself into the trenches of low ceilings, no air conditioning, no money, and start playing with all my, you know, new recording equipment that I would get. I had made pretty good money in the commercial real estate business, and so I was really rediscovering my childhood passion of music with a little expendable income. And I guess I made a quick comment to my then wife, who was jealous of me running off to the garage, that you know, I was going off to have fun and ignore her.
Right.
And I was saying, hey, it's not that exciting. I'm going upstairs. It's no low ceilings. It's hot. There's no air conditioning, and I'm not making any money. It's like a salt mine, and so that stuck. But since then, I've made the explanation less explanatory, and I just tell people, oh, well, it's because my name is Don Salter, and it's mine, Salt Mine.
Right. Right. And now, what year was this formed?
Oh, don't ask me years in math. One thing I've learned about my life is that I have a hard time pinning down years, but I suspect this that my discovery of the first incarnation of the salt mine as a name, and what ultimately became the beginning of my business was probably in 1986, 87.
Oh wow, okay.
But it might have been even earlier. I mean, I tell people that we're basically in our 40th year. We're, you know, almost 40 years in the business, because to a huge extent we were focused on being I was focused on being a studio and focused on being able to record people besides myself. And I even still have clients today that, remember going upstairs in my garage at my house in Moon Valley, where, the low ceilings, we eventually got air conditioning, but then I turned it into a place where my first friend and roommate, Mark Matson, ended up, introducing me to the love of keyboards and recording. And he was by my side when we started writing songs together in our bands. The first band being the Beat Poets, and then it moved on to eventually the Hypnostics, and then finally the Gimmicks, before Mark went off to LA and pursued his dreams and passions and quit the Saltmine. And I carried on with basically the determination that I no longer had a band to hide my practice studios and my deductions for buying equipment. So I just turned it into my full-time occupation to make it a recording studio, and brought in new people that would help engineer. And it was always falling upon me, the guy that had to answer the phone and pay the bills and acquire the gear and design and determine how to develop the studio.
Nice, man. Now, growing up in LA, city of stars, Hollywood, what made you make the transition to Arizona?
Well, Dad was retiring from a long-standing vocation of being an optometrist. He was a classically trained pianist and didn't do music as a full-time profession. He would play for different events, and it was always an avocation for him. He was very, very good, and of course, Dad was old when he married my current mom. She was like 42, and my dad was like 60 when I was born. So I was really, I think, a happy surprise by my mom's standards, and maybe not so happy surprise for my dad, because he was probably not expecting to pop out a kid at 60 years old, and with my mom being 42. So I think I kind of shocked everybody as, I popped into the world, and was a blessing, I'd like to think. Well, I mean, my all-time favorite band, recording them, was the prog rock band named Yes. When I look at my life and concert ticket stubs that I still have, that I tried to keep as a collection, the one ticket stub that occurs more than any others is the band Yes. From the Yes album to Fragile to Close to the Edge, Yes songs, and and it continues on, through their most recent record. And the one before the most recent record was a record called Heaven and Earth, which we had the good opportunity to record some of the songs and help with that production. And we then had also the opportunity to mix it with the infamous Roy Thomas Baker, who was the one that signed Queen.
Exactly, yep.
And we ended up having the record to mix with Roy Thomas Baker, and this was, I think, 2013, 2014. They were not here, and I had this great friendship brewing with Chris Squire, who's the founding member of Yes, and just a sweet, wonderful English gentleman. Again, a legendary soul, and we'd gotten to know each other, and with him coming here a few times before, and then because he had a house here and had started a family with a young lady in Chandler, he liked our facility a lot and brought the band here to do Heaven and Earth. But like I said, we ended up losing the record to a studio owned by Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft, in Beverly Hills. Of course, he gave it to them free gratis, from what I understand, or so close to free gratis that it was impossible to compete and actually try to make a living. So they went to LA and recorded it, and I heard it was, a hard record to record, but ultimately we had the opportunity to mix it. And the manager called me and said, "Do you want to do the mix?" And I said, "Absolutely, of course." And Roy Thomas Baker moved into our bungalow on site here, and they lived here for almost 2 months while we worked on mixing the songs. That later turned out to be a situation where the main reason that they went to LA was to get this big drum sound. But as Chris Squire told me, he says, "Bill Dolan," he says, "you know, Yes has never been a drum-oriented band." You know, so and of course that's true. If you listen to Yes records, it's always very tight sounding bass, not boomy bass, and or kick drums and drums. So it ended up getting scratched, and they ended up mixing the record in LA. I think Billy Sherwood, who's the current replacement bassist since Chris Squire died, ended up mixing the record. There's always two sides to everything. There's the exciting opportunity, and then there's the exciting experience.
Exactly.
And then, as is rock and roll, sometimes things do not always pan out the way you expected. But we had a great time. We got paid, and we got an appreciation note on the record. And Chris said to me privately that he understood exactly what went wrong, and he didn't blame us at all, and said that we would have many opportunities to record new records in the future. Unfortunately, he had cancer and died, and we didn't get a chance to do those. But that was a peak experience. It was a humbling experience because you learn a lot from your successes, but probably you may learn more from your failures.
Absolutely.
In the case of other great successes that we had a chance to work with Bob Ezrin, and we recorded a couple of Alice Cooper records that did very well, and we were excited about that and had great times with the band and Alice. And we also worked with Seven Dust, and also worked with Styx and Cheap Trick, and
Nice.
had a lot of great band projects. Most recently, we had Dishwalla come here to do some rehearsal, and we got to show them our studios, and they fell in love with our place, which it always makes me happy when people come in and they feel the vibe, they smell the Nag Champa incense, and and they see what we're all about.
Right, absolutely. And then you've also had, I mean, on the hip hop side, you've had so many legends as well record here.
Hip hop has been our mainstay, actually. I built the studio as a rock studio because I like playing guitar, and I have a guitar collection, and love the guitar bands, as we've remunerated from my childhood. But hip hop became the new thing, and we were graced with working with Lil Wayne after he was on tour and he came to Arizona. He got boarded in Yuma by the police, and ended up popping him in jail. And the next thing I knew, they had bailed him out, and they brought him up to my studio, and we ended up recording Lollipop and Miss Officer, and a number of other songs from the Carter 3 that instantly went ballistic and got us our first platinum plaque. And I understand now that the record has actually turned 10 times platinum, which makes it diamond, which we're very honored to see when we get that diamond plaque to put in our hallway.
Absolutely. And then, and God rest his soul, DMX, when he was living out here, he recorded with you. What was X like? Because I've heard stories that he's just like amazing, like just in the studio and to be around. What was that experience like?
Well, DMX was a multifaceted soul. I mean, he was a street rapper, and had all the cred that you would expect of a street rapper, almost a battle rapper. He was extremely prolific with lyrics, and with being able to just smack amazing lyrics lightning quick in the booth. We ended up doing seven or eight albums with DMX over his period in Arizona, before he ended up, deciding to, call Arizona no longer his home. He has his combative relationship to Sheriff Joe made it difficult for him to endure the love of the desert, the love of guns, and the love of pit bulls, and the love of being out there in Cave Creek, where he had a nice house. And the last I heard, there was a tank that went through the wall of X's bedroom to extract him for some kind of an arrest warrant, and it just never it never recovered from that. He got incarcerated many times, and then he would call me and say, "Hey, I'm getting out, and I've written a lot of lyrics, Don, and I'm ready to come down there and knock it out." And we would always be excited with X, because he was not only the street rapper, as I mentioned, and very much a fixture in that circle. He was also a gospel rapper, and he had a deep spiritual component that made his poetry, his caring to other people, very, 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 very wonderful and genuine. And so, it was easy to love Earl. We in my office, I have a signed poster, because when he passed, they did a big thing in New York, of course, which I expected they would. But we ended up having a memorial for him here at the compound, and 100 people or more showed up, of his friends and family, and we put up 100 balloons up in the air and told stories about Earl, and it had a little food and a celebration of his life, and experienced what it was like to have DMX in our life. And he was just a great soul, but he was also, very, very impetuous, shall we say. And he liked what he liked, and he really wanted to do what he wanted to do. He was very, he was like that little devil, He had that devil and that angel on his shoulders, and both would whisper in his ear, and he would kind of give credence to both. He was a bit impish in that he would be, he would be very fun. I think he'd be fun with the devil stuff, a little bit around the impish stuff. That he would be a little like he might steal a pit bull from the back of a pickup truck, because he would just think that he should. And of course, I'm sure that the people who lost the pit bull would be thinking that was an outrageous act, and of course it was. But he would want to shoot a machine gun at 3 in the morning as well, right here in our courtyard, and I'd have to dissuade him from that. And so, in some regards, he was just like a little boy, a naughty little boy that needed to be, schooled. And of course, Sheriff Joe was the first person that was ready to take him to task. But he would be there also in giving sermons in church, and he would have very, very spiritual moments. One of the most important times was recording the gospel album that he wanted to make as part of a double record. One of the things that he really wanted to do was put out a double album, a street record that would call Walk With Me Now, and then the gospel album would be Fly With Me Later. And he wanted to put them both out on, as a double album. The record label never agreed with it and ended up putting out the record Undisputed, which I got to write the liner notes for. And it was a spectacular record that didn't really get the traction it deserved, because, it was just a cadre of amazing songs. But at the end of the time, the gospel album is yet to see the light of day, and will be, I guess, released this year. And we hope to be a part of that, and a documentary that will feature some of those experiences. You know, I have 7 kids, and my legacy is in my kids, and in the career that I've lived in Arizona. I think I'm synonymous with Arizona music, at least everything that's walked through my doors. And I've tried to encourage as much possible to come through my doors. I would say that I was always and have always tried to be a positive influence on Arizona music and an Arizona host for the international artists that come here. Many times, like we realize that Arizona is a touring hotspot, and the way that music is today, people can be recording anywhere, and albums, end up getting tracked and even mixed, as artists are on the road. So we've had that's how we've had so many of the very famous international artists come here, because as a general rule, they see our facility as the top of the pile of Arizona studios. I of course am honored with that statement, but at the end of the day, I've just tried to build the biggest, best, and the most elaborate studios that will give people the comfort that they want when they're in Arizona. So creature comforts are important, and atmosphere. So my little tie line is that I say, like almost now 40 years of the finest ears, gear, and atmosphere, because we try to create the atmosphere, because the atmosphere is one that's born of coolness and security and comfort and like family hospitality. But it's also the place where world-class gear, an uncompromising quest for having world-class gear in all of our 5 studios here can be. And so we can give people that sound that they're looking for. If they were tracking on a M49 in Los Angeles with a 1073 Neve Mic Pre EQ, going to an 1176 compressor, or a LA2A, or a CL1B tube tech, we've got it. If they want an Elam 251, or if they want U87s or U67s, or anything that basically their heart desires, we try to make sure that it's available here. So I've kind of tried to tell people it's like an audio oasis in the desert. Well, I appreciate the sentiment, and that I'm special and that I'm loved. That's a statement that I wouldn't always necessarily make of myself, but I know that I am by some people, and and that's the most important thing, is that the people that do love you, I want them to know that I love them back. But more especially for the people that don't love me, I'm always willing to apologize, because I'm not perfect, and I'm a multitasker, and so very often my mind will be shifting from one thing to another, and that's the one thing that I can tell sometimes rubs people wrong, is that I'm dividing my attention, away from them to something else. But it's never with any degree of you don't matter to me. It's always with me trying to just do my best to stay on top of my phone, which I can see right now as I'm doing the interview. I have like 8 messages just during this period of time. And, I feel when a person sends me a text or a phone call, that's them reaching out. They're an artistic person. And keep in mind, art, music, that's an emotional experience. And if you don't feel the emotion and give credit for the emotion that is behind their inquiry, their concerns, their criticisms, their frustrations. If you don't show that you care, they don't care what you do, because as you know, the old saying goes, you know, I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. And in that regard, I really I try my best, and I know I fail because I am inundated by people hitting me up all the time. And of course, my mission is to, you know, get the answers quickly to the people who hit me up that they need, so they can move on with their life and make some decisions. My goal is always to, you know, answer every question honestly, and to invite people to visit us and see what we offer, and try to become, you know, a light that they can count on for, you know, helping illuminate the pathway to their music's greatest successes. And so my mission is always to try to help forward their musical quest and help achieve that goal and the dream that they have. Anyway, I'm Don Salter. I'm happy to have given you my 5, which probably was way more, but that's what you get with me. You know, what you ask for, I'll give back in way more than you expect. And that's maybe a good thing. I'm told that I should curtail some of my continuation of things, but my goal is to oversupply, and I'm hoping that you felt a little illuminated by my 5 with you today. Thank you for watching and listening, and come track with us.
And there you have it. Man, shout out to my man Don Salter. You know, you, sir, are an absolute gem. The Arizona music scene loves you, and I want to thank you for everything that you contributed to the scene and to the culture. It is very much appreciated. We wanted to do this for a while, and I'm so happy that we're able to make this happen. And thank you so much for being a part of our platform, my brother. I wish you nothing but the best and nothing less. Make sure you guys are following him on social media. Shout out to my brother Jimmy Nelson on the camera. Make sure you guys subscribe to that YouTube channel. Tell a friend to tell a friend. All right. Well, this was definitely one for the books. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, though. Until next time, stay tuned, stay blessed, stay healthy, and just give me 5, y'all.
Everything you get, you got the work.